Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with QuoCirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Director of QuoCirca, and today I'm joined by Issa Khoury, Program Manager for Microsoft Universal Print. Today we'll be discussing the benefits of cloud printing and how Universal Print from Microsoft improves the printing experience for both IT administrators and end users. So welcome to the show, Issa. It's great to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, nice to be here.
Yeah, so great. So before we get into the conversation, could you tell us a bit about your career history and your role at Microsoft today?
Yeah, I'm a lead product manager at Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for 23 years. I've worked on many products and in many capacities. It's been a great ride. And my current role, I lead the print team, product management team. And we are responsible for print all up on the devices, Windows Server, and the cloud with Universal Print.
Before we dive into Universal Print, I think it'd be useful for the audience to set some context around the challenges and pain points around printing today. I think it's probably pretty well acknowledged that printing can be a real headache for IT administrators and users as well sometimes, I guess. And it's often the last element of the infrastructure to move to the cloud. So often it's complex and inefficient. But could you maybe share your views on some of those pain points around printing today and how that can be overcome by moving to cloud?
Yeah, for sure. There are challenges, and a lot of the current technologies being used is starting to show its age because it was developed a decade or so ago. And recently, a couple of years ago, we started hearing a lot of feedback from customers wanting to move to the cloud. They want to migrate from on-prem servers or hosted servers to a pure cloud solution. And they want us to focus on security. So they're asking about security. They want simplification to reduce total cost of ownership for print and print management, and they want great user experiences. So that's the kind of feedback we're hearing and we're still hearing. So we created Universal Print because of that. A lot of customers were asking for a cloud solution, a pure cloud solution. So Universal Print offers them that alternative to servers, but we're updating the infrastructure in Windows, in the Windows Server, and creating the Universal Print service.
Yeah, and I think you touched on some really interesting points there because, some of the challenges we see from our research, talking to customers as well is, like you say, there's a real pain points around driver management and the patchwork of drivers and software that many IT administrators need to manage and support. And then from the end user perspective, knowing which printer to print to, where it's located and so on. And like you say, the reliance on on-premise print servers, which can be costly, inefficient, and also can have an environmental footprint as well. So I think if we pick up on the real features around Universal Print, I know you've had an update to Universal Print in November of last year. So could you talk about some of the key features and how it works compared to traditional print environments?
Yeah, excellent. So Universal Print enables the organizations to migrate away from on-prem servers. So the printers connect directly to the cloud. And these printers that are Universal Print ready are being produced by all major printer manufacturers, if not the majority of them. And they connect directly to the cloud using a certificate-based authentication with Entra ID, which was called Azure Active Directory. So they connect directly. There's no need for a server in the middle. And then the user is also authenticated with Entra ID and connected to the cloud. So the user can print to the printer in that way. And so there's no server and there's no driver to manage for the admin. So that's greatly simplifies the print infrastructure in the organization, improves security, and reduces complexity. So the security is enhanced because it's all certificate-based and everything is encrypted. Data in transit and data is stored in the cloud, is stored like other Microsoft 365 data, like OneDrive data or Outlook data. So stored in the cloud in that way. And also for organizations that are international, they have multiple locations stored according to the user's preferred location. And data is also stored in the same residency as the tenant where it was created. Universal Print is GDPR compliant. So like there is a lot of emphasis on security. With all that, and it comes also like a lot of simplicity. So the security and simplicity of their infrastructure helps a lot for the admins and for the user experience, which I can talk more about that.
Yeah, so picking up on the security aspect, because that's an interesting area we see as well, is that some of the barriers to companies moving to the cloud, not only in general, but also to a cloud print environment, is security. So there's some concerns, and you touched on there, around data sovereignty, where the data is going to be stored, but also document security and network security. So could you talk a bit about the security in a bit more detail around universal print? I know you've got pull printing capability through QR codes and, as you mentioned, authentication with Entra ID, but I think it'd be really useful to understand in a bit more detail.
For universal print ready printers, they're like I said, use Entra ID and certificate-based device authentication. And when the user is printing, the documents travel to the cloud, to the Microsoft cloud, and it's encrypted and travels in that way. So from that point of view, it's secure. And only the users who print to a printer, they have to have access to that printer given to them by their administrator. So the administrator in the organization decides who has access to which printer. And only people who are authorized to print to a certain printer can print to it. And so the model is zero trust with encryption. But at the same time, we know that customers have existing printers that are older, so they're not universal print ready, or might not have a firmware update to make them universal print ready. So we have a connector, and the connector enables customers to connect their existing printers to universal print. And the connector also has a Entra ID connection to the cloud. So in that way, it's convenient to start with universal print. Companies can start with their existing printers by adding the connector. But of course, with the universal print ready printers provide the best experience and the simplest layout. And then the user is printing from the Windows device, or we were also adding other operating system capabilities, like enabling users to print from Mac OS. So it's very similar. For additional security and privacy, universal print support pin release. So in this way, the user has a pin, enters the pin at the printer to release the job. We also added QR code scan using mobile, using the Microsoft 365 mobile application. So that's enabled by the administrator. The QR code is placed by the administrator on the printer. The user prints, and then they walk to the printer, scans the QR code using the Microsoft 365 mobile application, and the job is released. So in that way, it adds another layer of security, privacy, and reduction of waste from printouts that are left at the printer.
I watched a really great demo. I think it was on one of the Microsoft Tech Talks or Windows IT Pro videos on YouTube, and it explains really well how from an administrative side you can add that pull printing capability by adding QR codes to certain printers, but also how from a user perspective, users can select which printers they want to release print jobs at. And I think just picking up on something else you said around zero trust, I think that's a big focus for many companies, particularly large enterprises. And it seems to me that in Azure, you're registering printers to Azure with Universal Print, so those printers talk directly to the service. So is that correct in saying that each printer essentially has its own identity, which is a big part of Zero Trust?
Yeah, the printers don't have to be installed on the corporate network anymore, which is really a good thing. Yeah. And we're adding full print support. We announced that late last year that we're working on it. With full print support, the user prints and then they can walk up to any printer in the organization and release that job, whether it was with a badge tag using the manufacturer solution or the QR code we talked about. And that also, again, simplifies and improves things for the organization and the user.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about the printer drivers and how OEMs are creating their own universal print support and universal print ready devices, or they're using the connectors. Can you talk a bit about native drivers? Because I know Microsoft has announced the end of support for native print drivers with Windows. So what implications does that have? And I guess one of the reasons for that is potentially maintenance and security control of native print drivers. So does this mean that OEMs now don't need to build those native drivers and it's all part of the universal print platform?
Yeah, starting Windows 10, we put a class driver based on standards, based on Mopria, built on IPP. So we put that in Windows 10, and that enables Windows to connect to Mopria certified printers without a custom driver, a third-party custom driver. And that kind of method, we're using it for consumers and for enterprise, and whether it's on a server or service. So it's going to be like we're going to move to no drivers, and that will simplify a lot for our partners, the print manufacturers, and for enterprise customers, for schools, for end users at home. It simplifies for everyone, and it improves the security because now there's a single driver, high quality inbox, and there's users don't have to install these drivers, and IT managers don't have to manage them, and the manufacturers don't have to create them. So that helps a lot. But at the same time, when we put a class driver, a standards-based class driver inbox, that we still need to think about how OEMs can customize and produce features that are needed by certain customers. We enable that using something we call PSA, print support applications. And these PSAs are Windows applications. They get downloaded from the store or deployed in organizations using Intune. And these applications can be created by the printer manufacturers and provided to the customers. And they add additional features that highlight more features in the printers. And so it's a standard-based solution that is high quality and with security, but at the same time, it enables the manufacturers to customize and differentiate.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned, which I want to go into a bit more detail, possibly if we can, is around print servers. And we're seeing that that's one of the key opportunities for organizations to reduce cost and improve efficiency. And as I mentioned, lower environmental impact by eliminating or reducing that reliance on print servers. I'm just curious whether you're seeing from your customers, obviously they're using Microsoft Azure, but are you seeing that they're still sometimes operating a hybrid environment where they're still using print servers, or are they seeing now that universal print with the latest updates, they're becoming more receptive to making that full move to a universal print environment?
It depends on the customer and the way they have print and the way that organization was laid out and how distributed and so on. So, for example, if we see an organization with many offices and they have a server in each office, that's a little bit complicated for them to manage because they have a lot of servers and they're all over the place. So the first thing some customers do is consolidate where the servers are. They might put them in a private cloud or in a single location or in a public cloud. But there's another way to do it is migrate to universal print, which is serverless. But it depends. Some customers like the servers and they want to stay on the servers, and that's great. We are improving the servers. So again, there'll be the class driver for them with PSA, the print support applications, and it'll be an improved experience for servers also. So, it will give the customer a choice. Some customers, for example, if they have a single location with most people in that location and they have a server already and they're using it for multi workloads and they're also using it for print and things are working, it's great. So it's fine. So it really depends on the customer. But with hybrid work and with needs for users to log in from different places and possibly print from different places, with universal print, they print from anywhere and in the same way, whether they're on premises or outside, they log in the same way and they print in the same way. So this is produces an improved environment for the user and for the administrator.
Yeah, and I think definitely what we're seeing in terms of this kind of hybrid work environment, that's pretty well established now, is that is creating potentially more complications around securing prints, as we've already discussed, but also the need for organisations to have, almost a seamless experience to printing, as you mentioned, regardless of what device they're using, what operating system, and which printer. So it sounds like with Universal Print, they can have this kind of consistent user interface and experience from the user side, but also the administrative side. It's worth perhaps us going into that in a bit more depth around the reduced IT burden for administrators, because often that's a real bottleneck in managing the print environment in terms of support calls and driver deployment and so on. Have you got any, customers who have actually seen benefits around their reduced IT time that they're spending managing print, having deployed Universal Print?
Yeah, so it really starts with how the user gets set up to print. So with Universal Print, the administrator can also deploy using Intune. So they can set up the printer on the user's Windows device using Intune. So the user doesn't have to add a printer in the user interface with the settings. That simplifies a lot. And then when they print, after we create full print even, it becomes even easier because now there's only one printer. And the user prints that one printer that is already set up for them by their admin. And then they will, like I said, they walk up to any printer and retrieve that print job. But the idea of that is enabled with the hybrid work we talked about, is that there's no need for VPN and there's no need for a WAN, because with Universal Print, it's internet facing. So no VPN, no wide area network connections. That greatly simplifies and reduces cost.
Yeah, and actually picking up on the cost side, I know Microsoft announced some changes to the pricing structure at Ignite in November of last year. So could you tell us a bit about the changes that were made?
Yeah, for Universal Print. So when Universal Print started, we started during the pandemic. So we didn't know how people are going to print, how much they're going to print. We were still early in the process for the licensing structure. And after we produced it and went to general availability, we started hearing feedback from customers about simplifying how they access Universal Print. So it was already, Universal Print comes with Microsoft 365. So customers who have Microsoft 365 E3, E5, A3, and A5, these are the education ones. The enterprise ones, the E and the A is for education, and for business premium. These customers have Universal Print already. When we started, each license had 5 print jobs per license per month, and customers looked at that and said, that's not enough. And they don't print out much more than that. but they wanted the peace of mind that they don't have to track how many print jobs are happening and keep adding jobs. So we increased it to 100 print jobs per license per month. And those are pooled at the tenant level. So that greatly simplified for them. This way they don't have to keep track of the print jobs. They see it and they say, okay, now it's enough for us. This is enough capacity for what we need. And a print job is a document. It's not like per page. So a print job could be a 3-page document printed 5 copies. And that's 15 pages or something. So that's still counted as a print job. So when we went to 100 print jobs per user per license, per license per month, that greatly simplified. And so that is available for E3, E5, and Business Premium.
And I think that just really reflects the fact that printing is still alive and kicking in many organizations, the fact that, there was a need to increase the number of print jobs. And is that something you're seeing, obviously over the course of the pandemic, print volumes fell off a cliff because offices were closed and so on. But are you seeing from your customers that there is a recovery in print volumes and that's potentially stimulating demand around universal print? Because that's definitely something we've seen, is that print volumes probably are not going to recover completely back to kind of pre-pandemic levels, but organizations are definitely printing almost as much as they were previously.
It shifts, sometimes during the pandemic, it shifted a little bit to people's houses or homes, because that's where they were printing, whether for work or for education, with the kids needing printouts to do homework and so on. Really, for universal print or even server, doesn't matter how much the customer wants to print. The most important thing is that when a user wants to print, they can print in an easy and secure way. That's what really matters. But for printing, it changes. Companies, they still print, they still need the print. Sometimes for reviewing documents or reading documents, sharing documents, there's OneDrive, there's all the capabilities in Microsoft Office. So for collaboration, those are really powerful. So it's less likely to print to review a document or share it or present it to somebody. But sometimes there's more printing for work process, or people we see in retail, manufacturing, healthcare, education, where print is still required.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with some of the industry sectors that are still very reliant on printing, combined with the general shift to the cloud, it really makes sense to have something like universal print in place for those organizations to reduce their costs around printing, but also make it, like you say, more simpler and secure process. So in terms of the universal print features, I think we've covered most of them, but I know you introduced some new features around the admin side and Mac OS support in November. So can you maybe share a bit more detail around those?
Yeah, Universal Print has the Universal Print portal, and that's where the admin goes and manages print. It's a single place for the admin to add printers and manage stuff. And we're constantly improving that. And we announced also Mac support, which is right now in preview. Mac OS support, and it helps a lot, because even if customer has, let's just say 5% of their users in the organizations are on Mac, they still want a single solution for all users. And so that's really important. And then full print, which is also something required. A lot of organizations prefer to have full print kind of capability. So we're working on that. And printing from mobile is something also in the future. Users print from mobile in their home, and they want to do that at work too. So they can print using their mobile device. We started with that, enabling users to print from OneDrive on the web. So they can open OneDrive on the web and print. And obviously, we're using Microsoft 365 mobile application for QR code, and we'll continue to add more capability there.
Yeah, so it sounds really like the latest release is provided a lot more features around security and the user experience for remote and hybrid workers. And I'm just curious in terms of, because Quocirca's audience is primarily the print vendors, the OEMs and channel partners. Do you have any tips or recommendations for the channel partners or MSPs, managed print service providers, in terms of how they position universal print with their cloud printing propositions?
I think universal print simplifies the RFPs between the managed print service provided and the customer. Because if universal print is there already, then the RFP for an MPS becomes around the consumables and the printer hardware management and upkeep. So it does really simplify a lot for both sides, the provider and the customer. And for the providers, the managed print service providers, they can provide the universal print ready printers to the customers. So those are available and available from majority of the manufacturers. All the major ones are working or have already produced these printers, and they're available in the market. So providing these printers to customers simplifies a lot in terms of like migrating the customer to the cloud and providing them a secure and easy to use, easy to deploy service. But of course, like we have the connector too for existing printers, and it is straightforward to move a customer from the server implementation to universal print, starting with the connector. Because the connector is just a software that runs on a server. So that's also easy to start, and they can have a hybrid kind of deployment where they can try universal print in that way, and the customer can try it. And they can then migrate to universal print ready printers when they're ready to upgrade their printer hardware.
Yeah, I think it's really great to get this insight from you and understand a bit more about universal print, because you probably know Quocirca has been covering the cloud print market for quite a few years now, and it's always been one of the kind of roadblocks in terms of that full movement towards cloud print in the cloud print environment, because it's been a very fragmented market with a lot of different ISVs offering cloud print solutions, and I think universal print was a key solution. But I think now with the secure print capabilities and some of the data sovereignty capabilities as well that you mentioned, makes it a more compelling solution for customers. Clearly if they're already using the Microsoft Azure environment, but I think Microsoft, by being involved in the platform, but also in the end user application space as well, means that cloud printing will probably get more momentum now as a result of it already being built in to the Azure platform. So, I really appreciate you taking time to share that. I think, the key takeaways I can see, really the fact that it reduces cost, it reduces IT administrative burden, but also improves security. And for the end user, it's a much more seamless experience for them to release print jobs regardless of their location. And I think that was definitely the missing piece up to now at the secure print side of things. So it's great to see that that's been implemented. So
one more thing to add, just to add, because you mentioned partners. Universal print is a service for customers, but it's a service for partners, solution for partners they can build on top of it. So there's the Graph API where they can add additional capabilities on top, and the PSAs are a clear example of where partners can add more capabilities for their customers. So yes, it's a solution, but it's a framework and it's a platform.
That's really interesting, actually. So basically, partners can build their own kind of added value drivers through the PSAs.
Yeah,
and is that then? And so is that then available on the Azure marketplace? Is that something that they can use to provide the solution, or would it all be something that would be built into that universal print PSA?
Yeah. The print support applications are developed by the partners, and they publish them on the Windows Store. So, or they can get them to the customer basically in multiple ways. But in the enterprise, they can be deployed using Intune. So they provide them to the customer, and the customer gets them on the end user devices in the enterprise.
Yes, so one thing we are seeing is that there is a convergence happening around the traditional MPS providers who are typically focused still very much on hardware, and the managed IT space, which are more in tune with software and services and solutions and so on. So I'm just curious if you're seeing a similar trend in terms of the convergence of the two areas and how potentially they can utilize and leverage universal print to increase their revenue opportunities and diversify their businesses.
Yeah, totally. The convergence does provide new opportunity for the providers, like MPS providers specifically, with a cloud print solution like Universal Print being available for customers and relatively easy to set up. So the MPS provider can help the customer migrate to the cloud. They can provide Microsoft 365 Business Premium in the SMB space, and what they already provide, the printing capabilities like the printers and the consumables and the printer upkeep. So it becomes for them a more capabilities they can provide to the customer, an end-to-end solution. So it becomes easier for them to enter into the IT services space when it comes to print, because now Universal Print is available. They can help customers migrate to that and provide them the Universal Print ready printers and all the other services they provide. So that is an opportunity for them. So they can shift away from focusing on just printer hardware and the printer physical capabilities. So that's an opportunity. For the system integrators who already do IT services, also they can combine with the print capabilities and recommend Universal Print ready printers to their customers, and that becomes easier integration. So there is an opportunity for partners to do more for customers and help customers migrate and get a simpler architecture deployed.
Yeah, that's great, because I think it's very interesting for, as I say, the channel partners to understand more about Universal Print and how they can capitalize on the cloud print opportunity, particularly for customers that are already in the Azure environment. So where can they find out more? I know, as I mentioned, I saw a couple of great videos on demos on how it works, but if there's any links or resources you can share, that would be really helpful.
There's the Microsoft Universal Print website at Microsoft.com. That is a great place to start. And then there's the Learn content. And there's a lot of videos that we have created over the last 2 years that explain a lot of the details and show demos.
And just to finish off, what's next for Microsoft Universal Print? I know you mentioned a couple of things there, and anything that you think will shape the cloud printing market in the coming year?
Yeah, right now we're focusing on the macOS support and full print and enhancements in the portal. But we continue to add features. We listen to customers, we get the feedback, and we prioritize the feedback, and we produce the product. At the same time, we work very closely with the partners, the printer manufacturers, and the channel partners who we listen to understand how they conduct their business, so we can provide them capabilities. We're always interested in that. And we're constantly working on it, adding capabilities and improving. And like I said, the improvements are across the board when it comes to print, for consumers on Windows devices and for enterprise, whether it's service or server. We'll constantly see improvements there.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, I think it's a great opportunity for Microsoft's Azure partners to move into print, essentially, because we're seeing convergence between MPS and the traditional MSP space. And I think cloud printing, it's been a bit slow to take off because some of the reasons we mentioned. But I think now there's more availability of solutions and services, and the OEMs are creating these universal print ready printers and MFPs. I think 2024 will be a great year for cloud printing and universal print. So I appreciate you again taking the time to join me today. And as I say, we'll put all the links in the show notes, and I look forward to catching up with you again in the near future.
Yeah, anytime.
So thanks again for joining today's episode, which was the last in the series of In the Spotlight with Quocirca. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in Series 9.